I'm live on YouTube, live on Teams, live on Discord. All right. Hey, hey, everybody. Um, all right. My vacation, Braden, was less vacationy than I wanted it to be, but did get some breaks. Did get some breaks. Had uh, One of the things that starts to happen later in life is Thanksgiving gets more complex with geographic locations, extended family dynamics. So I actually had Thanksgiving on Thursday and on Sunday. So it was great, man. Double turkey, double down on the turkey. So hope you're all doing well. We got 2 semanas remaining. That's all right. One of the things we ought to talk about, maybe first thing, is whether we want to just be done with this today, because we can. We have the power. We on the schedule have one more week. Uh, I I don't know. I'm kind of busy and I'm tired. That's kind of where I'm at. And we've covered a lot of cool topics and hit a lot of stuff. And it's one of those things with where if some of you are like, wait, there's some topics. I think Yeah, I think maybe, I mean, weigh in, please. Any other votes you've got? Let me do a little, I'm going to throw a survey down. Okay, let me throw a survey in there. Um, there we go. Cast your votes, please, on whether today ought to be the last day. It's one of those things where I know this is that's some fast voting, man. That's called consensus. Oh, one sad. Sorry, couple saddies. Wait, is that yes but sad, or is sad face equal to no? What's the sad face mean? Yes but sad. Okay. All right. Then there's a no. All right. Yes but sad. Yeah, me too. Me too. Hashtag sad not sad. Hashtag sorry not sorry. Um, yeah. Wah, wah, wah. Anything cool? Any amazing stories from Thanksgiving? Just as long as we're on it. Any just absurdisms? Do you any okay, in my family, we there's like the notorious Thanksgiving dinner conversation with all the cousins or whatever, where some idiot, and those of you that have me in 305G, you know that I'm an extreme centrist, and I recognize and acknowledge the idiocy of both extremes politically, but there's that classic, you know, people at Thanksgiving dinner, family gatherings just getting just pissy about politics. Uh, just curious if there was any of that in my family. Of course, I'm the grandpa in my family. Um, we don't we don't really. I mean, we'll talk politics in small group conversations because that's just life. But we don't have like stupid, awkward political conversations over the Thanksgiving dinner table. So I'm just curious if any of you have like the really absurd, the absurd Thanksgiving dinner conversations. Anybody? Let me see what else. Hunter had an interview for a dev manager position the day after Thanksgiving, and it turned. Oh, hopefully it turns into good news. Yes, yeah. Good luck, Hunter. I hope that goes well. Is that Hunter? Is that in the same company or is that in another company? Are you interviewing to go to take a promotion within your company? New company. Nice, nice. Good luck. Um, okay, now James says he watched the Ghostbusters Afterlife. There was that recent remake that was just panned. I never saw it. And when I saw the promos, trailers for this new one, I mean, I was around when the original one came out, right? So I've heard remarkably good things about the new Ghostbusters movie. What else? What else? This is the sharing part. This is the sharing. What else happened? Was there any? And did anybody have? Okay. Um, so wait, Paul Rudd's in the new Ghostbusters. Another survey. Man, I can't type. Okay, I threw another survey down on Discord. Did you have awkward dinner conversation with family on Thanksgiving? And I am voting no. And just curious if anybody has any stories to share about awkward dinner conversation over things. There's a great word we borrow from German called Schadenfreude, and Schadenfreude means it's sort of taking satisfaction in the suffering of others. And so I have, because we don't really have awkward dinner conversation. It's friendly, cordial, you know. Um, you know, yeah, Braden, nice play. Yeah, you brought it up first to get it out of the way. Are you nuts? Then it never came up again. Well, apparently it worked. It worked, Braden. Jeez, Braden. Braden, sometimes, man. Oh, man. Yeah, okay. So 4x4. Your younger brother tried to start a tradition called Tell All Thanksgiving, and his usual first topic was to ask my parents who is their favorite kid. Oh, I like this kiddo. I like this brother already, man. Tell All Thanksgiving. No, no, that would be bad. Um, James said I was thinking maybe it'd be a good today if it's the last time. Which the 13-2, no, 13-2 on no awkward dinner conversation. It was 13-1 on today being the last. That's consensus, my friends. Okay, yeah, let me just throw down. Let me throw down me up on the big screen, and I'll drop a link on Discord. And um, where are we at here? C'est moi. Very slow, if you can't tell. Let me get rid of my messages. Um, yeah, so there's your link right there. LinkedIn.com/in/CD Knutson. I need a banner. I need a banner. By the way, this is me a couple years back without a beard. If you're like, what? Really? That's you without a beard? Yeah, it's me without a beard. And my sort of general philosophy is anybody in my any of my students, I have, as you might note, plenty of connections. I'm not trying to like beef up my connections and get to 50. So any of my students that want to connect over LinkedIn and just establish, and frankly, Facebook for that matter, I won't. I'll always accept a friend connect from students, whether it's Facebook or whether it's more commonly LinkedIn. Um, because it's a matter of building networking and, you know, kind of growing all of that. Um, all right. All right. And then, yeah, and if anybody wants to throw their own down, but if anybody wants to connect with me, please do so. As a general philosophy, I won't like directly, uh, unless I'm working with a student and there's some kind of, more personal established relationship. Sometimes in that situation, I'll reach out and initiate a LinkedIn request where we have enough of a working relationship that there's a relationship I want to preserve. Um, any student who's in any of my classes who just says, "Hey, I'd like to connect on LinkedIn," I'll always be good with that. So yeah. So if anybody wants to throw their stuff down for anybody else to either check them out, connect with them, whatever, feel free to drop it in the comments. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah. So James suggests, and I like that. I like that. Um, Share your link if you'd like to, you know, make connections. Ashlyn dropped a little brother off at the Provo MTC. Oh, that is always so sad. Um, we had a traditional dinner before then. On Thanksgiving Day, everyone was COVID scared, so it was just my parents and my younger brother and you, the other brother and you. What was the COVID scared? Was there like people sick and stuff like that? One of my former UVU students had his from Bountiful, but had him over to our place for Thanksgiving. But his entire family was actually down with COVID, the whole family. So he couldn't go home basically for Thanksgiving. That's sad. Okay, older relatives just afraid of catching it. That makes sense, Ashlyn. From a big gathering. Yeah. Although, man, it seems like now, I mean, I've been down that road a year ago for dang sure, you know. Um, but by this point, I'm kind of not, I'm vaccinated. You know what I mean? I'm not as worried about the large gatherings, in part because, at least according to the best science that I can get my hands on, the not to double down on this can be a controversial dinner topic in some circles. But no, my understanding is that not only do you have a dramatically reduced chance of catching it, of catching even variants, but catching any variant of COVID, if you do catch it, the severity of the illness is generally dramatically reduced. The likelihood of being hospitalized and hence, on a ventilator or whatever, is dramatically reduced, and the likelihood of dying from it, by dramatically reduced, I'm talking like 10x. So, I'm kind of at a point where I'm a little more willing to take my chances. But a year ago, there were so many unknowns and vaccines weren't out yet, and that was a lot more of a scary dynamic. So, anyway, but I hope you're all safe and healthy. Um, okay, we were going to talk about on the topics of coolness. We were going to talk about grad school. I think was the top was the top one. We talked about. Let me say one thing about specializing versus being a Swiss Army knife before we get off it. I'm pivoting. Can you tell? That's my segue. Um, the thing about being a Swiss Army, I was always kind of a Swiss Army knife. Really, uh, I don't know. I could do a lot of things, and maybe I was, as they sometimes say, a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? Maybe it means that I was never really great at anything. I don't think that's true. I think there were some things I was, but I speak of myself in the past tense because I'm in my 60s now, and the heyday of my engineering career was in the 80s and the 90s. That was the heyday of my coding career. Um, After that, I was in executive positions. I was management, teaching, academic. researching, just different stuff, not better or worse, just different. Um, but somebody once said, a famous consultant in the software space, um, that I'd met in, what was it? It was 96. Um, and was talking to him about being a consultant, and he's like, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I do a lot of things. I've got expertise here and here and here and here. And he said, nope, that doesn't work like that. You got to focus. And he goes, the reason you focus is not because you might just be that good at all those things, right? But you may be a multi instrumentalist. There's the best drummer in the Beatles was probably Paul McCartney, who was a absurd multi instrumentalist. I mean, he played everything and well. Uh, but what am I getting at? He said it's like if it's a matter of penetration. If you're trying to sell yourself, he's like, think about taking like a sledgehammer or a big mallet and like smacking yourself on the arm with it. You can't break the skin. It doesn't penetrate. But you take a hypodermic needle with that really thin, it's a matter of, you know, space, whatever, volume to surface area, whatever, and you stick a needle in, it goes right in. And he was kind of equating that to the notion of specializing versus being a jack of all trades. I think that if you're a jack of all trades, like I am, I'm also a multi instrumentalist, and I'm probably good at some and merely okay at others, but better than most. The problem is, if you're not, if somebody's like a really good band, and you're like, I can play all the instruments, kind of okay. That's not as interesting as, I am a kick-ass drummer, and you probably want me as your drummer. You know what I mean? Unless you're someone like Dave Grohl, who is also a multi instrumentalist, um, you know, and that's of course frontman for the Foo Fighters, founder and former drummer for Nirvana, and frontman, guitarist, vocalist for Foo Fighters, but a multi instrumentalist. So, bottom line is, you're going to open more doors if your focus is narrower, at least in terms of how you sell it. But the reality is that having broad skills is really, really valuable. So don't, I mean, if and again, you have to be true to your own nature. Some of you are like, I do one thing and it's what I do and I love it and I do it really, really well. Good on you. Um, and some of you are like, I get bored real easily and I want to learn other things. And so I wind up doing a lot of things. Also, good on you. But when you're selling yourself, you have to sell yourself narrow. Once you're in, like for example, if you're a really good dev, but you're also a really good software tester, your development work is going to be affected by that. If you're, you know what I mean? If you're a really good people person, but also a really good coder, and then you get into some coding, and then you have to interface with your team and with management and whatever, that's going to be a big advantage. So I feel like being a Swiss Army knife in fact, is a professional advantage. It's just harder to sell yourself, and it's easier to sell yourself when you're a specialist. And that to me is like, I don't I don't think that's a great thing, but I think that it's true to the way the world seems to be built, at least culturally. And as always, all semester long, per my perspective, this is just gospel according to Chuck. Take it with a grain of salt. You know what I mean? Everybody knows I'm not the measure of all truth. So these are just, yeah, the perspectives of one raving old man. Um, Let me double back on the comments. Um, Let me see. BB Goose. Hey, it was, by the way, BB Goose, it was good to meet you in person in the building. And I appreciate those that have kind of come up and said, hey, I'm in 496. There's no face contact, whatsoever. So I really appreciated you just grabbing me and just saying, telling me like who you are on Discord. So he said, I've had enough family members over 80 who've had COVID and been fine that I'm convinced our family tree gained immunity from eating poop on the dairy farm. That may very well be. Yeah. Or there's just something, you know what I mean? It can be genetic, right? I mean, your responsibilities, your not responsibility, responsiveness to those kinds of things. My wife is one of those never gets sick, never, ever, ever, ever gets sick. Braden, looping back to Thanksgiving topics. Let's see. Have multiple kids you like, but have a fave. Nice. Oh, there's that same thing. Oh, you're tying it. You're connecting it back. To, nice. Well done, Braden. Braden wins the chat so far then because of that. But with one demerit, because I had to, he had to explain it. Um, People who were really good at their own job but knew nothing of their coworkers' job were awful to work with. Right, Braden? Yeah, this is kind of the point. If you're really good at your job, but you can see and understand the perspective of everybody else, like a kick butt bass player. Back to music, which is one of my favorite subjects. A kick butt bass player who can't blend with the drummer is, you have to feel the drums, which I think is what made Paul McCartney so amazing as a songwriter and a musician. The ability to feel, because he was a drummer. I don't know how many of you knew that Paul McCartney was a really, really good drummer. In fact, in the middle of recording the White Album, which would have been 67, Ringo actually quit the band for like 3 weeks in the middle of recording the White Album. And so as they were recording the White Album, Paul McCartney just played the drums for like 4 songs, including, if I'm not mistaken, back in the USSR. Um, but anyway, but yeah, when you understand what other people are doing, that's really an advantage. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Braden. That's good. Anyway, I think that's probably a decent little speech about specializing versus being a Swiss Army knife. I was looking at some of these other ones, um, and came to the conclusion we're kind of out of time, but um, there's a lot of interesting languages that are, go do some, you can do some research, do some Google search about languages that are in demand, technologies. At the end of the day, my feeling is follow your heart about what you really like. Follow it, because that what you like feeds it'll feed your passion, and passion feeds learning. And when you really, really like it, Paul McCartney. Let's just go Paul McCartney. Secret word. I'm going with 4x4's recommendation. Paul McCartney, or um, some combination of bass and drums. How about that? Okay, everybody cool with that? By the way, and did anybody else? I want to just where I'm just. This is post Thanksgiving, whatever. But did anybody watch on Disney Plus the part any of the parts of the Beatles documentary by put together by Peter? What's his name? Why am I blanking? Peter Jackson? I feel like that's wrong. Who's the guy? Who's the director of Lord of the Rings? Peter Jackson. Yeah, yeah. I don't know why it sounded wrong. Yeah, I got about 2.5 hours into the first one. It's a good idea. Anyway, that it's if you're a music fanatic or a Beatles fanatic, I think you'll find it really fascinating. Uh, if you're just looking at it as getting entertainment, um, it's not. It's a long and winding road, man. It is kind of slow and really boring. Like slow and really boring unless you actually want to watch Paul McCartney in real time writing Get Back. And then if you're a songwriter slash musician slash Beatles fan like I am all three, then your head explodes to watch this guy generate this song out of nothing. Um, so anyway, let me talk about grad school just for the remaining 20 minutes. How about that? Great. And I know a bunch of you aren't that interested in grad school. Let me do a little quick survey. Um, Again on Discord. Um, I'm making the sorry, my once I start doing all the recording, everything slows down. I'm potentially interested in grad school, yes or no? Because what I might do is um, let me see what the survey says. No, yes, maybe. Okay, yeah, that. Thank you. I'm just going to give that a minute. Go ahead and vote. Because what I might do is say, because this is one of those really narrow things, and you guys have been great, really, really good about, we're online, but, showing up and doing the thing. Uh, let's do this. Let's do this. At this point, we already have the secret word of the day, which is Paul McCartney or some combination of bass and drums. Um, yeah, BB Goose. I think the once I'm independently wealthy category is a pipe dream that you'll never actually do. So that's probably a delusional actual no. It's a no with like fake eyeglasses and the nose with the mustache, the Groucho glasses, but it's actually just masquerading, but it's really a no. Let me hit you a few things, some ideas to jump on. And then for those that are like solidly no, at this point, I mean, I ethically, if you like really don't want to hear about grad school, then I morally and ethically release you from further participation in the conversation, and you're kind of free to go. We got 15, but that throw you a little bone here. Oh, by the way, can I just say there's going to be the SRIs. Do you have links to the SRIs? Throw me a bone on the SRIs. It's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? It does matter when people. Here's where SRIs matter. When teachers really really suck, it shows in the SRIs. When teachers are just decent, good, there's kind of a little bit of a noise range of doing fine, doing your job. You know what I mean? When you suck, the numbers get consistently really bad, and so the university does use those SRIs. Mine tend to be at the high end on balance. Not trying to brag here, and that's not a universal. I've had some bad semesters, but with one thing or another. But I'm just saying when the SRIs come, just understand what we're trying to do here and what this thing was trying to be, and you know, uh, whatever, you know. Yeah, faulted path. Yeah, and by the way, I agree. If you've got a teacher that is, there are people who are just like weirdly cranky, like really cranky, and check yourself, right? But if you're like not a cranky person, I mean, I've had some where it's like, I had one class once. It was a small graduate class when I was on faculty at BYU, where there were like 10 students, and literally like nine of the 10 were whatever the top score was, and the other one was the bottom. Like, I don't know. What do you do? How do you normalize that data? I've obviously had been offended, but didn't come talk to me about it. But no, if you've got some really horrific things going down in your classes, I do recommend that you're honest and give. Um, Braden, you had a professor who criticized you for having jobs while in college? Holy crap! That's not only absurd. That's just bad advice. My recommendation, right? Get yourself a freaking job now, because in the field of CS, that's how you differentiate yourself. They expect you when you graduate to have experience. So anything you can do. What does that mean? Treat out employees on campus for messing up his order. What does messing up his order mean? Oh, you mean like at fast foods? Yeah, see, that guy's just got a problem. That guy's got a problem, personal problem. No, but if somebody's really sucking, you got somebody sucking bad, you gotta report. You gotta do the SRI thing. And that's my advice to you. Um, but anyway, grad school. Um, Hang on. Thank you, Kyle. I have no idea what that means. Okay, grad school. Number one, the issue about, so whoever brought it up, faulted path. No, somebody who brought up, can you do the BB Goose? Is there a once I'm independently wealthy category? Um, Here's a couple of guiding principles. Put them in your bucket. Use them however it makes sense. But a couple of guiding principles. Um, okay, right now you're all, for the most part, poor undergrads. You're poor. You don't have a lifestyle to speak of, right? I mean, it's true. If you're ever going to get a graduate degree, the easiest way to do it is to do it now while you're still poor. Oh, that's from anger management? Okay. All right. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Man, I don't think I saw that. But anyway, you with me on this? The best time to do it is to do it now while you're still poor, so you just stay poor. Then you just continue to do it. But then you're still poor, but you have a master's degree. The challenge is that once you get out, number of things happens. Maybe you get married, maybe you start a family. Complexity. Suddenly, you got a minivan. You got a partner in a minivan, and little Hanyaks, and everything's getting a little more chaotic. The expenses go through the roof. You're buying diapers. You buy a house. There's a lot of things you think about. You think, I'm so poor, and then what happens is suddenly you're house poor, or you're making real money, but it's just going. You get a paycheck, and there's just this sucking noise, right? And that's the risk, is that then all of a sudden it feels like, well, I can't take time off work, I can't back off, because you make this much money, and then your expenses rise to match the amount that you make. That's like a truism, and if you don't check yourself against it, like, for example, um, I know people, not that many, but I know people who, for example, there's this whole adage about paying yourself first, and um, well, what that means is you set it aside. Like, there's current Chuck who's working, and there's future Chuck who one day won't be working. You set that money aside for future Chuck, right? Because he's not going to have any income later on. So they'll live below what they make and set that money aside. And those people they retire earlier, they retire better. It's a matter of self-discipline, but the tendency is to spend your way right up. Well, that works against going back to grad school. Now, it turns out I actually did. So I'm giving you advice that I didn't follow. But on the other hand, when I finished my undergrad, I had two kids and one on the way. And I went off to HP because HP had a program where they would put you through your degree at Stanford in the Bay Area. So that was my plan for grad school, was go someplace where they would pay for my grad program. And then I went there, and it was horrible at HP, and I lasted 1 year, and I bailed out to Novell, which I have no regrets about. Um, so, I'm just saying, uh, what I did, though, instead, was while I was working at Novell would pay for graduate tuition if you wanted to go to grad school. So at Novell, while I was at Novell, and by the way, I did get accepted at Stanford, but I didn't get my letter until after I'd left the Bay Area and was living in Provo, or wherever I was living, Orem. and working at Novell. But Novell would pay for, no, HP had a program where they would send you to school, but at Novell, they would pay for tuition. So I did my master's degree at BYU while I was at Novell working full time. But that also, I had 4 kids when I started, 5 when I was done, because you know how the water is in Orem. And next thing you know, you're just having babies. But finished my master's degree. And then at that point, now this is 94, okay? In 1994, with my salary and stock options at Novell, I was making more than $100,000 a year in 94. I was 34 years old. And I quit that to do my PhD. I actually quit $100,000 a year in 94. That's pretty gutsy. Looking back on it right now, it feels pretty gutsy. And I went off to Corvallis and started my PhD basically broke, you know. I mean, I had sold my house and made a little money from the sale of the house, which I think paid my tuition, allowed me to live for, whatever, a few months, half a year, whatever it was I got out of the house that we sold in Orem. Anyway, that's really unlikely. It's highly improbable. So the best way to get your degree is resist the temptation to job out and just crank it and just go through it and get it done. The other thing though about that is that some of you are experiencing some solid burnout by now. And when you're really burned out, it's tough to say, "Oh, now I'll just keep going and get my master's degree," when you're just beat and your body needs to sleep for like a year. Same reason, by the way, I never would do classes during the summer because I just knew at the end I tried like once, and then eventually I just figured out I needed a break during the summer months to, play some golf, just, work, but not be in school. So eventually I just never did grad school. Let me hit a couple of the comments. Braden, lifestyle inflation, right? Beefy Goose is setting money aside for future Chuck. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. In fact, future Chuck is not that far in the future. Um, James, what's your advice for being a successful student in grad school? Um, some people say their grad experience was amazing, and other people say it was hell. Interesting. So I'd be curious, James, what your perception is about what they said, those that said it was amazing versus those that said it was hell. The number one thing about grad school is to understand that and this relates kind of to James' comment, uh, there are, broadly speaking, 2 kinds of programs that you can get into. You can get into one like UVU's, which is a coursework plus project. You do a coding project, a larger thing, um, that feels like a big semester project, on par with like building the compiler, but it's something you're doing that's specialized. But you're not doing pure research, and you do your coursework. You do a little bit more coursework, and there are some that are purely coursework, where once you've done your courses, you're done. Uh, the advantage to those is you don't have to muck around with an advisor. And when you're doing a thesis, as we call it, the master's thesis or doctoral dissertation, sometimes they'll call it a doctoral thesis, but it's the same idea. It's basically a big book. I was looking to see, I have mine somewhere. It's probably over in my library down the hall. But the doctoral thesis is basically a book, and it's super, super researchy, and you read and understand and study the world. The big frustrations, I think, James, that are going to pop out is the advisor. If your advisor sucks, you're really dependent on that dynamic. That's one thing. And number two, remember the orders of ignorance. If you don't understand, remember the orders of ignorance was all about manipulating questions, managing questions, and generating questions that constitute frameworks from which other questions pop. Well, if you're not comfortable with that process, you'll spin your wheels trying to find the question. What's your question? And you'll struggle. Once you figure that out, you're going to figure out, once you learn, honestly, to me, once you learn the orders of ignorance, then uh, grad school is a blast. But if you don't, you struggle like crazy to understand what the questions are. So I don't know, but I'd be curious, James, what those people say. Braden, burnout's real. What comes, Kyle? What comes after burnout? Because I'm at that point. Rest is what has to happen, Kyle. You gotta get yourself. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a month off and backpacking around Europe or taking a real break, but a real break. Don't just sit at home in your mom's basement playing video games. That's not a real break. Get up, get out, breathe the air, get some sunlight, you know, get some exercise. That's why I'm saying backpacking across Europe, definitely. Duncan, how valuable is a grad degree in reality for our field? What's the value of a foreign master's than a US? Oh, great question. A great person to ask about the foreign grad degree is Neil Harrison. His doctorate is from University in the Netherlands. I don't know anything about it. I know it's a good school. Um, but the grad degree, so it doesn't stop you from having an amazing career. I think it does send a message to potential employers that you were a little more aggressive, that you were a little more energetic, that you had, that I don't know. I don't think that people assume that you're smarter because you have one, um, but they know that you've got to have done well enough to have done it. So it doesn't set you apart, all by itself, but it it does say something good about you, you know? And so I think it always helps. Does it make or break you? No. Can you do everything that you want to do with a bachelor's degree? Yes. But does it open some doors? Yeah, it does. And there are companies that favor people with master's degrees. My company, Ironwood Experts, that I've mentioned before, I favor people with grad degrees because in my field, which is intellectual property litigation support, um, you the my PhD sells really really well in that space. Just it's the market. That's what the market wants to see. So, and speaking of that, can I just say, if anybody is interested in potential internships with my consulting company, and or potential grad school at UVU with that extended project thing, with me as a potential advisor, just reach out to me, just DM me. Is the cleanest way to get me is to just DM me on Discord. Okay. Um, but shoot me a resume, and I do. My bigotry is that I favor high GPA. Guilty. Um, yeah, Tyler, Kyle can rise from the ashes. Exactly. James, yeah, the coursework masters. The one thing you don't get with the coursework masters is that researchy experience. That's the biggest thing I got out of my doctorate because in my master's program, even though it was thesis, I was very self-guided and didn't get a lot of real advice or feedback. And in my doctoral program, I had to go through a certain experience that I feel was really, um, you know, for me, life changing. Jack, future Chuck doesn't have money to backpack across. I'm going to Italy on the 10th, by the way. So I won't be backpacking, but I will be trundling my way across Florence. Um, Let me see. Yeah, Braden, think about grad school. You should think about it. Um, Let me see. Yeah, past burnout. I do think that you got to some of that being burnt out. You just need a break. You just need a break, is the bottom line. um, One other thing about if you take a job and you don't immediately go to grad school, watch where your heart is at about grad school. If you find that a year later you can't get grad school out of your head. And then another year later, it's even growing. And 3 years out of undergrad, that grad thing just keeps nagging at you. Then that's probably a good indicator that your body, your mind, your soul wants a grad degree. And sometimes you might ask yourself, is it okay to get a grad degree just because it's an itch I want to scratch and I want to just do it just to have it? I think that's a heck of a good reason. I mean, mostly that's why I did it. I mean, I had a dream job of being a university professor, and in particular at BYU at the time that I was coming out of my degrees at BYU. Um, and I viewed that as kind of a dream job. And I got a PhD really just so that I could be a university professor. And I knew that would open the doors. And so I did it, and I was always one to pursue a dream, go after it, right? We're about out of time. Last comments. Um, trying to 4x4. I'm trying to do my Siri, my SRI, my Siri, trash Dr. K, trashing Dr. K. Um, no, SRI. I'm used to getting an email. I'm not finding an email and I can't find where to go through. Isn't there like, I don't know. Yeah, you should be able to, man, for me, when I log into my UVU, it's gotta be at my UVU. Maybe they're not opened up. I don't know. But just a reminder. Okay. Anyway, when those pop out, would you just, look kindly upon the old man that you've spent the semester with? No, Tyler, they usually send them out before that. They're not usually just during finals. My recollection is that they send them out before finals, but I could be wrong. I have been wrong many, many times. Okay, well, hey, listen. I don't know. Are there any lingering? If anybody wants to stay a little late, if any other grad school things that I really haven't answered, I mean, I'm way overeducated, so I'm obviously a fan. There's something that's kind of neat to accomplish. To have that grad degree sets you apart a little bit. Yeah. Hunter, thank you. You're welcome. I'm glad. I hope it was useful. I hope, my biggest goal for this class was just to not be a bloody waste of everybody's time. That was my first physician's creed, first do no harm, and then hopefully be of some value. A little group therapy doesn't hurt us. And hopefully there's value coming out of it. And I think the seminar is going away, um, and which I'm sort of okay with. But anyway, James, you're very welcome. Yeah, Tyler, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the comments. So cool. I'm gonna shut it down. And no class next week. We're done. This is it. This was your final, and everybody passed. All right. Let's celebrate with Baby Yoda. Thank you, Tyler. Yeah, you're welcome, Zach. Zach. Yeah, you're welcome, everybody. That would be Italy, Kyle.